Do anything fun over the break other than sleep? Be the number one thing people were looking forward to was sleep. My voice sounds weird because I'm having allergy issues. So that's fun. Worked on my garden a lot. Didn't get as much pool time as I wanted, but I still spent time outside, which was nice. So I harvested my potatoes, gotten a lot of tomatoes off of my tomato plant. So it's a move in the right direction for eating healthier. Should have made that my New Year's resolution. I would be crushing it if I made that my New Year's resolution. It's like, oh, I'm going to eat healthier. And then all of a sudden, boom, I have a garden. Well, I know what I'm wishing for, or my resolution is for next year. Although it's going to be hard to top. If I say eating healthier, hmm, now I'm conflicted. Okay. Two-step authentication for everything. This is fun. I feel like one day they're going to ask me to pluck a hair out of my head and stick it in the computer to make sure it's me. They already scan my face 50 times a day. Oh, yeah. So, nobody has any fun thing just to share from over the spring break? No? Okay. I guess y'all did just sleep. It sucked. But did you have to like work or something? Oh, a mini party. That sounds fun. Oh, oh, poor Junior. You were sick the whole time? Oh, that's not fun. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're feeling better. And you're still sick. That's unfortunate. And then no sleep at all. Hmm. Well, I guess we know somebody that's looking forward to summer break. Wisdom teeth out with your best friend. So like dual wisdom teeth out. Like share baby food. I had to get my wisdom teeth out when I was in my senior year of high school, and I had to bring jars of baby food with me for a week. Mm, yeah, that really hurt. I had four impacted. They're all coming right at my rest of my teeth, so I had sharp pains shooting up the sides of my head. Yeah, right after is not fun either. Oh man, well, I hope everybody's feeling good soon. So prom is coming up, so hopefully everybody gets back into shape and able to go have fun there. All righty, so it's been a while since we've done anything, so I figured what I'm going to do is we are going to work on some recapping of where we left off with Romeo and Juliet. So I found this pretty nice video. It's one we haven't had before, and it's done by a guy with a British accent, so that I feel like that brings more authenticity to it. So, I've got a Nearpod for all of you,
I
and
had
I
a
have.
question.
Can I finish what I was saying, please? So I'm going to share the link with all of you, and while you guys get into that, then go ahead and ask your question, Amani.
It was about the other Nearpod. I logged back onto my theme to check my grades. It said it was missing, but we all did it in class.
Was sometimes the reports don't always give me all the information right away, so I have not checked it all week, so I'll have to check those now. Well, not right now. After I'm done teaching, I'll check those.
Okay.
Alrighty. So, you tell by the rather amateur looking first slide. This is actually one I put together. Making sure I'm sharing the sound. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to get into this one. But yeah, so I've got a recap video that has a few questions throughout. And then I took the whole prologue and did a fill in the blank activity. And then I have 5 events from Act 1. And you have to match it to the scene that it happened in. And then we have some multiple choice questions to finish up. Oop, and more people coming in. Message. Okay, sharing the Nearpod link again for those that just joined us. There that is. And I have to update attendance. Okay. While I'm updating attendance, you guys get in to the Nearpod. And so by the time we are done with today's class, I'm hoping that all of you will be refreshed on what we went over before we went to spring break. This one was kind of fun to put together. I think that by the time we are done with the play, I don't think we're going to have too much time to go over much of anything else. So it's pretty much Romeo and Juliet and progress learning for the rest of the school year. See how fast we can get this done to see if we have time to go over anything else. There's a couple of poems and stuff I wouldn't mind going over with you, but I don't know if we're going to have time to do it. All righty. So let us go on. So here is the British guy helping us with Romeo and Juliet Act.
What happens in Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet? Let's find out. How's it going, Revision Squad? It's me, Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka Dystopia Junkie, and this video marks the beginning of my Romeo and Juliet revision series. Now, what else would be a better way to start this series than me summarising the first act of the play? Summaries for Acts 2 to 5 will follow in due course, but if I were to sum up the entirety of Shakespeare's play in just one video, well, it would be very, very long. Before I get stuck into the summary for Act 1, please do not forget to give this video a like, write me a comment, and share it with anyone who you think might find it useful. And if you are studying or revising Romeo and Juliet, why not subscribe to my channel too and turn on that notification bell, because that way you are not going to miss any of the other videos that I will be making about Romeo and Juliet. Alright, cringe-worthy beg out of the way, what actually happens in Act 1? Okay, so Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet begins with a prologue. Broadly speaking, this prologue gives an outline of Romeo and Juliet's plot. It makes some really key information clear right at the very beginning of the play, meaning that the audience are going to be well aware of what's about to happen. For instance, the prologue reveals that the play is about two families, who we later find out are called the Montagues and Capulets. They live in the city-state of Verona, which is in Italy. Now, vitally, these two families hate each other and have a long-standing feud. Importantly, fate determines that a Montague and a Capulet, namely Romeo and Juliet, become star-crossed lovers. By the end of the play, we are told, these lovers die. These two
Okay. What family is Romeo from? You have two choices, Capulets or the Montagues. Okay, most of you got that one right. Yeah, all of you got that one right. He is a Montague. So they really didn't do last names as much. So I like to call him Romeo Montague, but they really didn't do that. He's Romeo of the House of Montague. I don't know.
These two deaths, it turns out, are the only thing that can end the bitter hatred that exists between the two families. Act 1, Scene 1 begins with servants from the Montague and Capulet families having a fight, following some incredibly rude thumb-biting antics. However, more family members and family representatives and family allies get involved too. The fight definitely escalates. In fact, you could say that it escalates quickly. Anyway, Prince Aeschylus, the chap who rules over the city-state of Verona, turns up and forbids the two families from fighting. He says that if they are caught fighting again, he will sentence everyone involved to death. Not good. A little while later, once things have settled down a bit, Romeo is introduced. And we find out that he is sad because he has been rejected by Rosaline. He is very weepy and forlorn. Act 1 Scene 2 sees Paris, a relative of the prince, chatting with Lord Capulet, the head of the Capulet household. During this chat, Paris asks Lord Capulet if he may marry Juliet, Lord Capulet's only daughter. However, Lord Capulet isn't so keen on the idea, saying that Juliet is too young to be married because she is not yet 14 years old. He asks Paris to wait until Juliet is 16. But the thing is, Lord Capulet is not going to end their conversation on a negative note. And so he invites Paris to a party that he is soon to throw. He gives Paris permission to woo Juliet, meaning that he says it's okay for Paris to try to win Juliet's affections, but also tells him that there will be many other beautiful women at the party as well. Before he and Paris leave the stage, Lord Capulet gives one of his servants a note that contains a list of names of people that he wants his servant to go and invite to the party. The servant runs off. Some point later he bumps into Romeo in the street, and this is how Romeo finds out about the party at the Capulet household. Having seen that Rosaline is on the list of invitees, Romeo decides to go to the party as well. Act 1 Scene 3 takes place in the Capulet household. Initially, Lady Capulet and the nurse, sort of like Juliet's personal assistant, talk about Juliet's age. During this chat, Nurse tells a crude story about when Juliet was a toddler. Anyway, after that, Lady Capulet asks Juliet what she thinks about marrying Paris. Lady Capulet seems pretty keen on this idea.
Okay, so Juliet's nurse has a role in the plot. What is it? Is it background information, the context of the times, some comic relief, or some expert knowledge about law when it comes to marriage and inheritance. I like that he uses the little emojis in there, like the winky face and stuff like that. And the British accent helps too. I like that he calls everybody, he calls people chap. I know this chap. I usually say dude. It's like, okay. And dude over here is, but I'm not British, so that's why I say dude and not chap. We did not do well on this one. Remember the little clown face next to the nurse? What do you think the clown stands for? There you go. The nurse is not there to give expert knowledge about the law when it comes to marriage and inheritance. She is the person that keeps prattling on, derailing the conversation Lady Capulet is trying to have with Juliet about Paris. So, if you actually get to just the conversation that Lady Capulet wants to have with Juliet, that scene probably would have been, I don't know, 6 or 7 lines. It's so long because the nurse keeps telling really long-winded stories and not keeping us on track. So you see, the nurse is not someone there that always advances the plot. She'll have her moments. We've not seen that yet. But in this time, she is designed to make the audience have a nice little chuckle while real world stuff is going on. So, when you're talking about underage marriage, Shakespeare feels that you need to have someone in there to make everybody laugh. Because I'm sure there's some people in that audience that were faced that themselves, and they probably didn't laugh too much when it was happening. I mean, how many 13-year-olds have a happy conversation when it comes to, so, would you like to marry this person you've not met yet, but it's got a nice resume?
Praising many of his qualities. In response, Juliet says that she isn't particularly interested in the idea about marrying Paris, saying that it's something that she's never really thought of. But, in response to her mother's excitement, Juliet says that she will try to show an interest in Paris at the party if that is what her mother wants her to do, suggesting that Juliet is fairly obedient at this point of the play. Act 1 Scene 4 sees Romeo and his 2 close friends, Mercutio and Benvolio, making their way to the Capulet party. Now Romeo and Benvolio, who are both Montagues, have to wear masks because they were not explicitly invited to the party. Now this is quite normal practice for the time. If you wanted to go to a party that you weren't invited to, you had to wear a mask and be prepared to give a speech to the host. Mercutio does not need to wear a mask, as he was on the invite list. He is neither a Montague nor a Capulet, and is in fact a distant relative of Paris and the Prince.
Okay, so this is an interesting interpretation of this one. He must have done more background work and stuff like that than a lot of the places that portray this. Most of the time, now I've seen several of these plays, movies, etc., they have everybody wearing the masks, and that's the one we saw on our performance. So they could have done it where just the uninvited guests are doing it, which would also make it more sense why Lord Capulet was fine with some Montagues there, because apparently this is common practice, and this British guy is letting us know.
As they walk to the party, Romeo and Mercutio banter for a bit. They exchange puns, and Mercutio jokes about dreams and fairies in a way that is sort of teasing Romeo. The level of banter shows that they have a pretty strong friendship. As the scene comes to a close, Romeo announces that he has a bad feeling that he might die prematurely. Nice and cheery, don't you think? Act 1 Scene 5 starts with the party beginning, and from across the room, Romeo sees Juliet and instantly, and I mean instantly, falls in love. Tybalt, who is Juliet's cousin, recognises Romeo's voice as belonging to a Montague. As such, Tybalt wants to fight him and gets pretty angsty. Lord Capulet, however, being mindful of the prince's commands and the fact that any potential violence might occur in his own house, forbids Tybalt from fighting. Tybalt does as he is told. Meanwhile, Romeo and Juliet have met and have started to flirt, which they do by using religious language. In the midst of all their flirting, they kiss a few times. How romantic. Whilst with Juliet, Romeo finds out that she is a Capulet, and he promptly leaves the party. Afterwards, Juliet finds out that Romeo is a Montague. Her love for Romeo is already so intense that this leaves her feeling very conflicted indeed. After all, their families are sworn enemies. Alright, so that is Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet summarised. I really do hope that you found this video to be informative and useful, and that it has given you a bit more confidence when it comes to studying and revising Shakespeare's play.
Okay, he goes on to really try and sell his channel and stuff after this, so I'm sure we'll be hearing from this chap again in Acts 2 through 5. I only watched this one, so he did pretty good with it, and he kind of brought in some stuff that was even new to me. I've been teaching this play for years. So, I'm guessing we're going to hear from him again. Unless he gets like inappropriate or really off track, then I won't use his videos. All right. So, here we go. Activity presentation. All right. I see it opened up properly for you guys. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you guys can fill in the blanks because I see it showing up right for you. And afterwards, we will go over it. So I made sure not to reuse words this time. And a couple people are finishing up. Some pretty good scores here. I'll let people continue on for a little bit longer. So I'm putting that slide on student paste. And for those of you that are finished, we can move on to the next one. Okay, so now we've got some matching. And again, you can tell I've done this one because it's very bland. I haven't figured out all the the colors and that kind of a thing yet, but I'm getting the basics of this. All right, so you have scenes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And each of these things are something that happened in one of those scenes. Okay, looks like everybody has done at least the first run through of this one. Okay, so here are what we're looking at. Two households, both alike in dignity. Fair Verona, that's the name of the city that they're in. We lay our scene from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood, I almost did civil, but then I was like, oh, I don't want to do two civils. So you can't distinguish which one goes where unless you know. So I went with blood and hands. Uh, unclean. From forth the fatal loins, these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers. That's very unique for this. You don't hear that term too often elsewhere unless they're referring to this. Lovers take their life, whose misadventure piteous overthrows, doth with their death bury their parents' strife. That part's important, so I wanted you to see that one. The fearful passage, their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which by their children's end, that's another part that's very important, naught could remove, and the 2 hour traffic of our stage, that's how long it is, the which, if with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So, there's another play where they have a similar one, but at the end, where it's actually the comedy version of this one. So there's two characters who are in love, but their parents are not liking that union. They want the bride to marry somebody else. Somebody else wants to marry that guy. So we have these two couples. You end up getting lost in the woods, and there's fairies, Midsummer's Night Dream. And at the end, they kind of give us this thing where, like, if we offended you, sorry, but you know, this is how we go about things. It's is what that one says. It's pretty funny. Alrighty, I'm gonna let you guys work on your matchups. See, some people are still working on that one. Alright. Looks like everybody has gotten theirs done. Good. I'd go over them, but everybody seems to have done gotten 5 out of 5. So sounds like you know what you're doing. Cool. All right. And the last thing I have in this Nearpod to do. Right, sure. Okay. I'm sharing my screen. So now we have a. Turn that off. We don't need that on now. So we're all done with the matching. So now you have a 10-question activity. It looks like a quiz, but it's not graded like a quiz. This is where you get to kind of go through and answer the questions. And if you need to redo it, then you're able to. This doesn't have a max amount of things that you can do. So I will let you work on that until the end. Hey, we got some good work done on that. All right, so we are going to go over these because not everybody got them right. Okay, the setting of Act One, Romeo and Juliet. That is Verona, Italy. Fair Verona, where we lay our scene. That part is when it was telling us where it is. Zoom switch to a different view. There we go. It had everybody in this like teeny little part of my screen. Everybody looked like little ants. Okay, so next, how does Romeo learn about the Capulet's feast? So we don't really know the servant's name. Um, it might give the servant a name, but that's none of them. Juliet, he meets at the party, so he have to um learn about this before he meets Juliet, or else that whole last scene would have been really different if he had seen her before. Benvolio was also not on the list, so he wouldn't have seen it either. And do we remember who Tybalt is? That's the guy depicted with the devil horns from the British guy. He is tumultuous. Not only would he not share something like that with Romeo, um, he probably wouldn't have a very nice conversation with him. Yes, I think he is the person that wants to fight. If things are too calm, Tybalt is the one that's like, okay, let me at him. Let's start making things more dramatic because Tybalt tumultuous. So, um, Benvolio benevolent. It's a little bit of wordplay going on there. Okay, and who tries to break up the fights? I don't remember who got this one right or not. No, it does. I looked in the script. It just says servant, so we don't know the servant's name. It'd be funny if they did like servant number three. Because they do show some of the servants' names. Like if we're in Romeo Juliet Act One, Scene One, we have Abram and Samson, and they are fighting with Gregory. Who's the other dude? Samson, Gregory. Gregory does speak a lot, does he not? And then Benvolio comes in. Oh, maybe they don't name him Abraham Sampson, Gregory. Yeah, he takes up a lot. The other guy really isn't named all that much. Okay, so if someone's gonna break up a fight, Romeo, he doesn't have reason to break up the fight yet. So all of the fighting that's been going on, Romeo has not been involved in yet. Mercutio. The only time we saw Mercutio was right before the party when they were all goofing off. So there was no battles happening when Mercutio was in any of the scenes for Act One. You're going to see more action from them later. Tybalt was a part of the brawl, but if we go back to it, he was the one that's like, oh, it's like, oh, says what? Drawl and talk of peace? I hate the word. That's what Tybalt says at that moment. So he goes on to say, as I hate hell, all Montagues and thee. Have it thee, coward. Those are fighting words. That's not breaking up anything, except for maybe his opponent chopping into pieces. And so Benvolio, he's the one that's trying to break up the fight. So when we went through and did that one assignment where you were supposed to highlight all the places where Benvolio was trying to keep the peace, that Act One, Scene One should have been there because there's at least, I'd say, 4 lines where Benvolio is like, oh, okay, everybody, let's simmer down. Let's put the swords down. Let's duck this out. And Tybalt's like, nah, So, not in a fight scene, not in a fight scene, stirring up trouble and trying to break up the fight. Okay. What advice does Benvolio give Romeo about his unrequited love for Rosalind? So, when we meet Romeo, beginning of the end of scene one, he is forlorn. He has been pursuing a lady and she has rebuffed his affections. And so Benvolio has a couple. Romeo only tells him that it's a woman. Benvolio's like, duh. Yeah, he tells her, by giving liberty unto thine eyes, examine other beauties. Okay, so he says that here. We also, in scene three, nope, scene four. When they find out scene two is where it's the nurse and Lady Capulet. So scene four is again where we see Romeo, Benvolio, and now they've added Mercutio. And Benvolio is like, look, we're going to go to a party. We're going to see that there's other women than this one that he wanted to see. So let us examine other beauties. So that's two times Benvolio is like, look, stop barking up this tree. Look for a different tree. Um, I would have liked that one. Sing her a song. Challenge her suitor. She didn't have one. So it wasn't like somebody came in and said, hey, that's my girlfriend you're hitting on. And Romeo's like, oh, well, fine. I'm going to whip out my sword. Mm-mm. None of that happened. We don't even know if she has another suitor. I write her a letter. That sounds legit, but no. Look at another woman. It's way to go, Benvolio. Alrighty. Now, this one, I think you know. Hot-headed and aggressive. Paris, all we've seen of him up to this point is he has proposed to Lord Capulet that their houses make an alliance through marriage. Okay, so we see him at the beginning part of Act 1, Scene 2, where he's having a discussion with Lord Capulet. And Lord Capulet's like, ooh, I don't want to part from my daughter. She's too young. And Paris is like, she's older than some people that have gotten married and been mothers, and they seem pretty happy. And then we see Paris again in scene 5, but he doesn't say too much. So he is at the party. People talk about him being at the party, but we don't actually see him. So we can't say that Paris is hothead or aggressive at this point. Tybalt, I think I've already given you a couple examples of that one. Benvolio, uh, no, he's a pretty chill dude. And Romeo will be hot-headed, just not in Act 1. He has no reason to be hot-headed just yet. Remember, he's forlorn. Okay. What event do the Capulets plan to host in Act 1? A funeral? Given what we heard in the prologue, that would be a pretty likely answer, but no. A grand feast, a wedding, a tournament. Now, the wedding, no, it's got the party aspect on there. We would have heard about a union because even at the party part of it, you still have a lot to do with the groom and the bride. So, since marriage was brought up so much in this act, some people might think that this gathering is to do with it. We're not that far yet. So, there's only been the suggestion of marriage up until this point. And so Paris brings it up with Lord Capulet. Lady Capulet in scene 3 brings it up to Juliet, but nobody's made anything official yet, so we couldn't even call this an engagement party. Oh, I got it. This is a they meet party. Tournaments, we probably would have seen something where people were competing, so we can rule out tournament. So this is definitely a grand feast. Um, they do mention a lot of stuff about things that are offered. So, okay. Juliet's initial reaction to the idea of marriage in Act 1. Okay, this one we can rule these out. Because she doesn't want to marry Romeo right away. She falls in love. She wants to like Paris, but with Paris, it's a new idea. So, think about somebody sitting there thinking about childlike things. So someone sitting there playing with, let's say, blocks. I would not go up to a child that's young and just trying to figure out how to put blocks on top of each other and say, okay, I'd like to build a building. Could you get me some blueprints? Because I need to know where to get started to build this building. Okay. They're putting the cart before the horse. So she really doesn't say she's excited. She's like, oh, okay. And then when her mom's like, so what do you think? Or do we have a plan? Are we going to go with this? She's like, well, I'll meet him. If he's not horrible, we'll see where this goes. So that's definitely not excitement. And then she doesn't refuse anything at this point. Now, we circle back to this question later on in the play. We're going to have some different answers. At this point, when we're just looking at Act 1, Juliet is compliance and she wants to make her parents proud. And back then, to make your parents proud as a young lady, you get a really good husband and you elevate the family with the alliance that you've helped make. Okay, here, this is the best answer because when her mom first brings it up in scene 2, scene 3, she says, "It is an honor I dream not of." When Lady Capulet says, okay, let's talk about marriage. So she flat out tells us she's not thought about it. What role does the nurse play in Juliet's life? This one we don't get from actual specific lines. It's kind of more of an overall. So she sits there and talks about Juliet as a baby and what her role has been throughout Juliet's life. I'd read it to you, but that would probably take a long time and we don't have a whole lot of time. So, Juliet's mother doesn't want this to just be a conversation between Juliet and herself. She's like, oh, let's have the nurse in there too. So, she is her caretaker and confidant because when she goes and starts smooching some guy she's never met before, who was it that she asks to help her figure out who the guy is? Is it her mom? No, she asks the nurse. So that's how we know she has confidence in the nurse. So we see caretaking early and confidant at the end. All right. What does Lord Capulet say about Juliet's age? She's not yet 14. There it is. Yeah, that's exactly what he says. He's like, whoa, hang on a minute, dude. She's not yet 14. Where you might get the she is too old for marriage is probably what we saw when we talked about what Paris said when Lord Capulet's like, oh, she's still a baby. Let's not talk about marriage. He's like, yeah, younger women than her are married and have kids and they're fine. Then, when Juliet and her mother, Lady Capulet, are talking, Lady Capulet's like, okay, you haven't thought about marriage yet, but by the way, I was married and had you before your age. So there's that. So that one is probably the she's ready for marriage since somebody is actually proposing and wedding plans are actually being started. That would might be tempting too, but everything points to she's still too young. She's not even 14. And she can already be 16 because it lets us know that she's 13 years old. Okay. And the last question. The significance of Queen Mab in Act 1. So, it reveals Mercutio's views on dreams. The whole Queen Mab part. This is the middle of Act 1, Scene 4. Oh, then I see Queen Mab has been with you. She is the fairy's midwife, and she comes in shape no bigger than agate stone, for forefinger and adelman. So he's describing her, and he can't describe other people's dreams. You can only describe your own. So if this is how he sees Queen Mab, who is a character that they know about, then um, this is what Mercutio is going for. So, predict the future of the characters? Not really. Talk of dreams, vain fancy. No, he pretty much just describes her the whole time, so he really doesn't bring up much of anything from the future. Describes a real fairy, which we know that's not true, because this one's not science fiction. And it is definitely not a love poem. This lady, it talks about her cutting throats, so yeah, no, that's not it. All right, so that brings us to the end of the Nearpod. Okay, so um, any questions for me on that? Okay, we're all good. Nice. All right, so we will be working on progress learning on Wednesday, and then I will have an Act 1 quiz for you guys for we meet up on Thursday. So you'll have all the stuff to review because I'll have it available, and I will check the Nearpod. Not sure what's going on with that one. So I have to check the Nearpod to see why it's not working. And then hopefully I can get it working, or the tech guy comes back. He's not here today. Okay. So that brings us to the end. Stay seen, everybody.